We are going to be jumping into some Q&As on the 3rd gen Prelude. I went on my Instagram, asked you guys to drop me some questions that you have about that platform and that chassis, and I'm going to dig into them today, answer them for you, and I'm curious to see what you guys came up with. If you're new here, my name's Connor Lee. I have a 1988 Honda Prelude. It is the B283S, it's not the SI, so it is the carbureted model. It does not have 4-wheel steer, and that's pretty much the platform that I have to work with. Oh, and I swapped it to be a manual 5-speed. It was automatic. So if you're new, now you know what we're actually talking about here with these questions, and I'm gonna jump into the first one. Hey, Jenna, can you turn off the heat? Thank you. First question comes in from j.fum. Is it reliable and hard to maintain? Well, if you're willing to put in a little bit of effort to figure stuff out, it's not all that hard. I think if you have the fuel injected model, not the carbureted, you're gonna have an easier time making adjustments on things like your idle, if it's a high idle issue, just little things. It really depends on how mechanically savvy you are, and then also what 3rd gen Prelude you end up with. If you end up with one that's been taken care of and it doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance besides the regular stuff, you can surely figure out oil changes, coolant flush, things of that nature. I've put loads of content out there for you guys to do that as well. But if you're running into more mechanical issues, like you got to rebuild the motor, I haven't done that myself, so I can't really say. I think if you're doing regular car maintenance, it's actually a pretty simple car. Because of its age, most things on the car are put together with 10mm bolts and Phillips head screws. So you can do a whole lot on this platform. As far as reliability, it's a Honda. You know, there's definitely some reliability with that name. However, it is a 30-year-old car at this point, so that's gonna really depend on how the last person took care of it or the last few owners took care of it. And it's up to you to do your due diligence and try and get that information before you buy the car so you know what the history is. From Josh Kinsley, thinking of lowering my lude, do you know the clearance under the car? Sure don't, bud. I would guess it's less than 3.5 inches. I think my exhaust is the lowest point on the car, and yeah, 3.5 seems like a pretty optimistic number there. I would say it's probably closer to 3 or less. This question from Sammy.Gur. For how much do you, hold on, I have to reread this. For how much do you have bought it? If I understand your question, you're asking how much I bought the car for. If my memory serves me correctly, I bought it back in like 2018 or 2019 for $2,700 USD. From my boy Cody_LMAO, what rare parts have you had your eye on? One in particular, rear windshield spoiler. Dinkus_toys, most underrated feature. I'm gonna answer this in 2 parts. The first part would be, if you have the 4-wheel steer version of this car, the turning is probably just phenomenal. I actually haven't had the pleasure of driving one, but that feature back in its day was brand new technology, and honestly, even today, it corners better than a lot of cars that are out there. So I would say the 4-wheel steer if you have that model. If your 3rd gen Prelude doesn't have 4-wheel steer like mine, I would actually say my favorite feature on the car is the pop-up headlights. I mean, they're so unique. Absolutely no cars built today have them. You know, relatively speaking, I'm sure there's some very unique builds out there that companies are making, but to like the grand market, there's no pop-up headlights. So that feature I absolutely love. Never gets old. There are a lot of questions here, so I'm gonna have to fly through these. Seuss Lever. What about engine swap the Prelude, I think is what you mean. Still on the to-do list, just not there yet. I really wanna do probably an H swap, but you know, priority is right now doing the body work and getting the little bit of rust that is on the car off the car, and then having a nice clean body to potentially drop a new motor into. On the same measure, this one comes in from Jigit Sambi 008. Best engine swap for a Prelude. I've never done one. I've transmission swapped, but I haven't done an engine swap yet, so I can't speak from experience. I've really heard good things about the H series swaps. A lot of guys do crazy stuff with the B series. I think maybe 1 or 2 people have done a K, but they're very tall engines, and the Prelude's bonnet sits very low, or the hood. There's not a lot of room in there for a tall motor, so there's not a whole lot of options, but I've heard good things about the H22. Luca_Deutscher, sorry, I'm probably butchering it, man. Where do I find parts? The answer to that question is anywhere and everywhere you can find them. As most of you know, almost everything on this car is discontinued by Honda, so you really have to look at other vehicles that were made in the same generation of Honda's years, so like similar year Accords or CRX, Integra. You want to try and find parts that will still work, or maybe with a little bit of fabrication will work on the 3rd gen Prelude. Outside of that, I mean, eBay. You got to be looking on the forums, especially if you're looking for OEM parts like door cards or interior pieces, things that aftermarket companies aren't really going to sell. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and the 3rd gen Prelude forums are going to be your best bet. Fernando, did you buy yours off a website? Having trouble finding Preludes in decent condition? Drop me a comment down below, man, where you are located in the US or outside of the US. And I'll poke around. I'm curious to see where you cannot find them. I found mine actually on a Craigslist ad. The guy had posted it not more than an hour before I stumbled upon it. I reached out to him, and the car was actually in Tennessee. It's a wonderful story. If you haven't watched the videos from way long ago, it's great. We picked up the car in Tennessee. I flew down, picked up the Prelude, and I drove it all the way back up from Tennessee to Massachusetts. It's a great adventure. So go check that out. Like I said, you got to check out Craigslist, Facebook, maybe things like cars.com, but I would be very surprised if you ever saw Prelude pop up there. Outside of that, the forums. Not a question. Saludos desde Chile. I believe that means hello from, or greetings maybe, from Chile. Hey man, this one from R_Garcia0206. Long-term goals with the Lude, future mods. We've kind of already brushed upon it. Really want to take care of the rust, repaint the car, swap it. I think after that, I'd really love to put air ride on it, just because it's a car I don't want to damage and be static all the time. I'd love the ability to have a more comfortable ride and also a variable ride height. We're getting to the last few questions here, so I want to thank you guys for sticking around this far in the video. We've got some good ones still to come up. Actually, some really frequented questions that I get a lot. If you're new here, think about subscribing if you enjoy this type of content. Also, thumbs up, guys. It really does help the channel and the algorithm push my content out to like-minded folks, you know, like us, who are interested in cars and 3rd gen Preludes. From Marquise V, does it make for a good first car? I would actually say yes. People have asked me this before, and I would say yes. Again, to the other question's point about how reliable and easy it is to work on, I think if you're willing to put in the effort to work on the car, it's actually a great learning experience. There might be a little bit of curve for you learning wise, but once you get the hang of things, you start to realize where everything is located, how it all starts to work together, and the more you wrench, the more you know. And I think it's a great platform. It's actually probably, besides the Tacoma, my favorite car to work on. The Toyota, it's a lifted truck, so everything's accessible. It's really hard to beat. One of the top questions I get all the time from Marcos Bertoli _ where you buy the lip, ? And the lip comes from Amazon sometimes. I usually try and update that link, so it's always down in the description, guys, where I include all my parts. That link does expire, so I try and update it here and there. You can find it on Amazon, on eBay. I'm sure some third parties sell it as well, but it is a 1996 Honda Accord Type R front lip. I've done a couple videos on the install now, so check them out. And the final question from G Money, Ghost Money. Where can I buy parts for my Prelude 1991? And actually, I feel like I've kind of already answered this. Just to reiterate, eBay, guys selling used parts, you might find some. Facebook Marketplace, that's gonna be local, but again, keep in mind, this is a rare car, so be open to driving 8 hours to go get the part that you need. Don't be looking just within 20 minutes of where you live, because chances are you're not going to find it. Spend a lot of time on the forums. Although there aren't a lot of people talking on the forums anymore, you'll notice all the posts are really from about a decade ago or even older. But you can learn a lot about little kind of small companies that still make little parts here and there for our platform. So it comes down to doing a lot of research, spending a lot of time on the interwebs, searching for people selling Preludes, parting out Preludes, and sometimes just selling various parts. And then I also get a question that was not actually asked here a lot, and that is, where do I find information on how to, written information on how to do this stuff? I've mentioned this website a million times. I'm not affiliated. This website walked me through how to do my manual swap. So it's a very valuable resource, and that is www.prelude3g.com. Again, not affiliated, really love the website. It's pretty easy to navigate, and there's some really good stuff in there. So guys, if you're new here, think about subscribing. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Comments below what you maybe have some questions on for the next one. I will keep this in mind for my next Q&A, and I'll jump back here and kind of do some follow-up questions. So put it down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Keep elevating, all that good stuff. Adios. Okay.